Guys, so I'm going to talk to you about figurative language. The most important thing I could ever teach you. Figurative language is like being kissed by your favorite crush. It just fills you with so much joy and laugh and love, and it just, oh, all of that is figurative language. That was the example. So let's get into it. Figurative language. It's the key of being human and not a robot. Hence the picture of a robot. All right, so there's different types of figurative language. These are a few of them. Similes. This is using like or as. Richard is as handsome as Brad Pitt. Sure. Metaphors. It's direct comparison without using like or as. So Richard is handsome. Is Brad Pitt Richard is Brad Pitt handsome. Awesome. Personification is giving human traits or ability. Oh, the old tree was like an grizzled man bent over, something like that. The clouds, the angry clouds, or because clouds cannot really be angry. That's not a human emotion. And then hyperbole, exaggerated statements used for emphasis or effect. The best class, the best teacher, the best cat. Hey, baby. My cat is coming over again. He's very curious. What's wrong, Bacon? Okay. I'm down on the kitchen table today because my wife is taking a nap. So he's very confused. He's like, this isn't your desk. Why are you here? Figurative language and reading. When you read a text, pay close attention to words and phrases that stand out as unusual or descriptive. Usually there's commas around them. That's a clue. That's a visual clue. Look for comparisons using similes. Her voice was as smooth as silk. Or metaphors, time is money. Identifying a personification where non-human things are given human qualities. The trees danced in the wind. Oh, that's a nice one. I like that. Spot hyperbole or exaggerated language. Now, in academic writing, we need to tone them down. The more academic, the less you should use. And you got to strike a balance. So I would avoid hyperbole. I would use similes and metaphors. I think that's great. Hyperbole, probably not as much. The purpose. So it makes the reading a lot better. It enhances the imagery. It helps the reader visualize the concepts. It's important for conveying emotions. Too often, people's writing lacks emotions. Some emotions good, but don't be too explosive. Emphasizing significance. If something is happening and you want to make it seem very important, it's a good way of emphasizing it. It's a good way of let the reader know that this is an important thing that they should pay attention to, which is a good idea for your teachers because your teachers can miss your points a lot of the time. So how do you incorporate figurative language into writing? So one of the things you need to do is any chance you can incorporate sensory details to engage the reader's senses. Anytime you can mention the sounds, the feelings, the responses, your senses, anytime you can break that is a great way of doing it. So we're doing compare and contrast, right? So this is a good way. The smell, the feel, does it feel different? Does it smell the same? Where can you do it? They both smell like old socks. They both feel like rough sandpaper. Something like that. You can do compare and contrast that way, and it's a good way of making your paper seem more human and your topics related. So going more into simile and metaphors. So similes and metaphors are probably the two I would suggest the most for this writing essay and for college writing. Using like and as or metaphors is just an implicit comparison without using linking words. Hot as hell. Today was hot as hell. That's a simile. Today felt like my oven. That's a simile. I died from the heat. Am I dead? No. So that would be hyperbole. Things like that. All of these are good ways of making your paper more approachable to the reader. With personification, This is an okay technique. It's a little cutesy. It can be cutesy, and sometimes cutesy does not belong in academic writing. Hyperbole doesn't belong in academic writing because you shouldn't be so over the top. For contrast, though, they're both really good for setting up contrast. So if you're doing a compare and contrast paper, these are a good way of doing it. Imagery and sensory details. Vivid image the reader's senses, as I've said before. Let us visualize. What does it look like? Don't tell me it was hot. Show me it was hot. The sweat dripped off the forehead as the student ran up and down, as the player ran up the court, making puddles of sweat on the floor. Ooh, I can see that. The sounds and smells. The crowd was cheering so loud the people's ears were hurting and the floor was vibrating. Sounds. The locker room smelled like 10 dead cats in a box. I don't know. That's a terrible one. Don't do that one. Don't ever gross out your reader. That would be a good rule. Taste and touch. How does it feel? How does it, anything you can do that puts the reader in what you're talking about is a good idea for imagery. So I don't know if you watch TikTok. I love TikTok. One of my favorite TikTok guys is Keith Lee. He does restaurant reviews. If you haven't seen him, you can go look at some Keith Lee videos. And he's fantastic with his imagery. You can just look at him and see how he's like, He'll take a bite. You'll be like, ooh, and you're like, oh, that looks good. Or he'll talk about like, oh, the crunch is so good in my mouth. And it's like, wow, tell me more, tell me more. So Keith Lee, strongly recommend watching some of his videos to get an idea of how to incorporate figurative language. Experiment. Try it in your own writing. Try incorporating the different ones. Go ahead and give some examples. I'll make an assignment later this week, probably for next week, where I want you to give me 2 of each. I won't do it for this video. This video I'll be like, ooh, who's the TikTok star I said to watch? Something like that. That'll be the question for this. But later on, probably this weekend, I'll set up an assignment where I want you to give me similes and metaphors. You can, and I'll make sure to include this website, which is really good because it shows like examples. Oh, it got deleted. All right. I'll find you how authors use similes and stuff in their own writing. All right. So the key, you got to identify and incorporate figurative language. So when you were reading that basketball article, could you hear the basketball? Could you hear the girls being quiet and the boys being loud? Could you hear that? Could you smell the court? Could you feel the difference? You need figurative language in a variety of ways, in different ways. Are you using it to compare? Are you using it to contrast? Are you using it to describe? Are you using it to inform? There's different ways, and you can use them in different ones in different ways. And just keep practicing. And remember, anything you can do that will make your paper connect at a human level, it will make your reader like your writing a lot more. All right? Hope this video helps. If you have any questions, please let me know.